Particle divisions, lie centers, activation, stream interference, location, avatar connections, blocking surface, high channels. So, I said this is spiritual warfare. Well, this it's going on so many highline interference locations and program settings. Give you guys 5-10 minutes to get started. But what I'm going to talk about today is really understand more of your clocking system. I really want you to understand the reference when it comes into line center. So imagine you got position locations of 2 clocking interference. One line center is position of the grounds, which is 12, right? So you got 12 ground line centers. That's your 12 DNA. You start with the 7, you go with the 5. That's 12 right there, 12 DNA, right? Then you have to go through another 12 line centers, which is space. What's 12 plus 12? 24, right? So in that calculation, you bring another 12 to another 12, which is 24 in position locations. Now, understand what 12 times 12 is 144. How do you get that in position locations? 24, 48, 72, 144. Clocking system line centers all position locations to its convergence. 5 within system, 6 within activation, 7 within core, 5 within the atmosphere. All right. So it's trying to understand how to use the clocking system of light and dark, male and female, positive and negative, mother and father. Okay. So once you understand the positive and the negative line center, you get a true understanding how important it is to use your thought patterns. So you're using the negative line center to all position locations as reference. Don't use it as a force, because if you use it as a force, you're creating a cycle. If you're creating that cycle, you're creating in space. And when you create it in space, you have a feeding source. It feeds off its system to its computer adaptation line center, to its error. Once it becomes its error, it becomes its own formation of its own computer. And now you're creating a portal of a realm. And now you're creating a tunnel. So every time you create a negative cycle, what's happening? You're creating infinite position locations of dark matter. Ooh-ah. You don't want to do that. All right? It's important you understand how to use the negative cycles in position location. Use 12 as a reference because it doesn't exist anymore. Okay, it did in the 3-dimensional line and the physical line, but not anymore. The avatar sees the 12 and 12, 12 of light, 12 of dark. Okay. 12 of light and 12 of dark. Day and night. Night and day. Doesn't matter. What matters is getting the balance. The male and the female aspects of you is all levels of you through travel. The avatar has to understand that it's in its experience of its spiritual connection, or it's going to have a confusing line position to its clocking system. You're not referencing any more in that position locations until you understand your avatar system. In calculation line connections, you're always centering its position of going forward in life. Once you go back, you are creating a negative infinite system to an error. That creates a portal. That creates a dimension. That creates a vibration. That creates its energy and its harmonic resistance to its intelligence. Now you created a black hole. Do I have your attention? How powerful it is if you use the negative as a force line and not as a reference. Okay? That's important you have to understand. 5-10 minutes to get started. So I'm just going to go down the list. All right. Let's see here. Let's get started. Max, how's it going? Nicholas, how's it going? So Nicholas, I don't know if you know this, but it's making sure when you go on my live that you put divergence and then underscore your name, because you're going through the spiritual line of the physical line. So that the avatar is coming into its position location of living, and the physical line is going into the experience. Okay? So you're living the avatar. Okay? And the physical line is going through the experience. Okay? So there's a little bit of confusion there. So if you change your name to divergence underscore Nicholas, we're good to go, right? Because I track everybody in position locations, of time frame, time sequence, time codes. It's important you understand that on TikTok, just match it onto my YouTube on my live, okay? And then put emoji, okay? When you put emoji, make sure it's different from everybody else's, okay? Thank you. Tiffany, how's it going? Counterstream, how's it going? All right. Johnny Communication, Haley. Jill, how's it going? Amber, how's it going? Airbender's going. Michael, Don, Terry, Lindsay, Pam, Gypsy, Veronica. Great. So you guys are putting it, yeah, divergence, not divergence. Thank you. That's okay. Track line center interference. I mean, that's okay if you make a mistake, but just, how's it going? Belinda, star 8, Madeline, Sammy, Jenny, Val. All right, Jessica, Michael's all set. Prosperidge, Pyra, how you doing? All right, so you're coming into a spiritual line, which is extremely real because the 3-dimensional line interference location is all levels. There's a lot of shutdown and interference. So it's position, location, it's direction. So that's where we come into really high line centers. So we have to pay attention to these things, right? It comes across the stream. So Jill, thank you for rooting. Line conditions. Taryn, how you doing? All right, to my daughter. Great. So get everybody in line. Julia, Astro, Sala. Great. And the thing is, too, I'm glad we have these sessions on Monday and Wednesday because it's all about getting your questions answered that you need. That's going to help you always inform, especially when you get into your travels of your avatar system. So today I really want to get in calculations, all levels of clocking, what it is. Okay, it's true to understand all levels. I was doing this on TikTok last night when I was with Gypsy. We're doing healing position locations of some various connections. So it's true understanding. Find a way, if you can't find out where the sun is or the moon, one way to look at it is try to see your body, all levels of space. So this is where we come into the head space, the heart space, or your mind space. Okay, so there's three track line centers. You have to open up position locations. So if you're in your head space, you're doubting, you're hesitating, you're stressed, you're angry, right? Now that's coming into your divergence to converging. Okay, so it's true to understand to use your lights of your percentage of what you're doing through line conditions, how to use that through a practical system. Okay, it's all psychological and how you use your thoughts through the mind. That's important. You have to understand through your clockings. So if you're communicating with somebody, it's true to understand how to use it through telepathy. So are you calculating to your clocking system? If you're at 244, that's fine. But where's that person at? So if you're at 244, you're mocking. You're past 144, right? So it's all about understanding. Not only you only know the position locations, but you know all direct line centers of north, west, south, and east. So this is how it's in position locations. This is you. Okay. This is all levels of you. All right. Now, understanding the north, understanding the east, understanding the west, and understanding the south. Okay. Now, this is where it comes in really interesting. You have your grounds. Always have a ground. You need a ground, right? Understanding the grounds. Now, this is where your chakra system comes in position locations to its DNA track. See the DNA track? Okay, in calculation, that's what it is. That's the crown chakra. So understanding the chakra system and how it works on both line conditions of your parallels. There's the parallel. Okay, so we got that in position locations. Now, you have to understand that in position locations, this is the left line center. This is the right position locations. All right. So the left line center line interference location is all levels of the sun, and the moon is position locations to its right. Okay. Because it's a reverse line center. So left and right. So in position locations in your shoulder. All right. So this is left. This is right. So right position location is all levels of its moon. Left is its sun. So that's the true understanding. So it's a hologram of both. The sun and the moon is in position locations of you through space. It's always above the system. Your earth is in the center core of you. Okay. So what you have to do is create the space. All right. So when you're creating the space, you're creating a cup of glass of water. And once it starts floating and your earth is starting to come in position, and when the earth starts floating, your physical high rises. Okay, so that's where you come into more light. You feel lighter. You're levitating. So what you're doing is you're creating anomaly of earth, of space and time. So understand that calculations. When you come into high position locations, you have to understand all levels of the earth and space. Okay. This comes into mother. This comes into father. Okay. So understand that this line center is the sun and this is the moon. Your earth is inside. So this is where it comes into the flux capacitor. See? And your chakra system goes up. Okay. So it's very powerful when you understand the parallels of you through your E fields, through your eye receptors, your sonar, your realms, okay, your crown chakra, and your flux capacitor. So you have the sun in position locations as a hologram. So the actual sun of you, okay, is in space, but it's inside of you. So think of it this way. Okay, so this is how it works. This is you again in position locations, Trinity to stand. Okay, I'm just showing you what it is. Okay, so the earth is inside. That's the earth. All right, so you got the ground line center in position locations. So it's all about channeling position line center. So left line position locations. All right, so you got the sun and you got the moon. Right, there's the flux capacitor. Now in position locations, you have your north line center, you got your east, and you got your west, and you got your south lines. This comes into its diamond core. All right. Now, understanding the diamond core is all position locations through its directions. So it's truly standing. If you're moving on high center locations on the north line center of south in position locations, you're moving your sun in position. Okay. So if you decide to go south wind, okay, down cross line center to the east line position, southeast, you are calculating all line center to the moon in position location to its ground system. So you're moving it in direction, but it's the flux capacitor always stays in the center, and the emotional track is online center rotations and what you do through your chakra system of location. Okay, see that? So, so always use north as a reference because it doesn't matter. This is north. As soon as you go here, that's north. As soon as you go here, that's north. Because you're looking at the galaxy now, because the galaxy goes on different lines. It never goes forward. It always goes forward and back. Okay? It's interesting too, because everything that's going back is always going forward. Space is difficult of travel until you understand the north, west, east, and south of clocking. All right? So each position of each chakra line center has its own clocking system of north or south and east to its diamond core position. All right? So if I'm moving over here, I've just moved my sun. If I move back over here, I just move my moon, right? So you're moving the sun and the moon in direction that you want to go. So if I'm moving forward in position to flux capacitor, depending on my emotional track, it's in position location of where it is. So the sun is always on the left and the moon is always on the right. And you are in the earth line center of position location, creating space. And when you create more water of space, right? Because you have water inside of you. Once you understand the remembrance of your avatar, your earth starts floating. And when it starts floating, what are you creating? Space and time. Now, when you're creating space and time, your physical line levitates. And that's why you feel lighter in space, because you're creating it through its anomaly. And every time you come into your remembrance, you're starting to understand more of what it is through its track system. Okay, and it's all done through your chakra system, a flux capacitor. Okay, so now you understand, right, how important it is to get in line signal to your parallels of your position locations to your spine. All right, so there's a lot you have to understand. It's a lot of fun when you come into that, especially when you come into clocking, right? So you got 12 line centers, you got 12 line centers, okay? 12 plus 12, okay? All right, equals online center to 24, okay? 24. So this is where it comes in high line center interference. So you got a 24 clocking system, okay? You got a 24 clocking system. You're circling its rotation. All right, so that's great. So now you got 12 and 12. That's 24. Now you have to use 12 and 12 as a reference to get into higher levels of the chakra system of space because you're reaching higher levels of its position. All right, so you're always using reference of 12 because 12 doesn't exist only in a three-dimensional line. The 24 exists through the avatar system. That's how they see it through perception, right? So once you get into that division and use the 12 and 12 as a reference to higher levels of space, now you're coming into levels, right? So 12, okay, equal line center in position locations, down center in position to an air line center. Okay, so 12 times 12 equals 144. Ooh, all right. So in position location, that's where the ascension gods are. They're at 144. They start there. You guys start at your 12 lines, but you use the 12 as a reference. You don't use it as a force connection to clocking. Same thing with the negative cycle. Now, high channel interference line condition is its position location of its directions. So once you come in this position locations, you come into all line center locations of yin and yang. Now, it's understanding what light is and what dark is. Okay. So this is a line center locations. So you got the fish going up line and you got the fish going down line. Okay. 69. Right? Makes sense. I was born 1969. So in calculation, you have to truly understand all line centers of 12 line centers of light and 12 line centers of dark. Day and night, light and day, positive and negative. Now, this is where it gets interesting, where dark becomes light. So this is a true understanding. When you're creating a negative indigent line conditions of air, you have to be very careful on what you do with your thoughts because you're going to be creating dark realms of dark matter. If you're creating dark matter, now you're creating a black hole. If you create a black hole, now you have a computer of a feeding source of a negative cycle of a cyclone interference. Be very cautious on that. Okay. So it's important that you always use a negative indigent position locations to anything through letters, numbers, and shapes or symbols to your track system of reference and not a forced line of communication. Okay. All right. Let's travel. All right. So I'm going to travel line centers. We go through white graph and interference. Program location to its position. All right. So as we're going into travel position locations, we all line its position. Now, online rotation interference location is direction. Okay. As we're going in direct line centers, we're going in circle locations in position of 3, 6, and 9 position line center. As we go into 3, 6, and 9 position locations, we open up all ground interference, all power line interference, all line centers of position locations, magnetic force and height system. Now it's an allocate time switch. We come into the box surface high position location, travels high line center interference. Now it's program line center interference location line conditions. We go into high position locations. Computer adaptation cycles, reset line generation lights in communication program setting, resetting line course of position locations, redirecting satellite position locations of 3, 6, and 9. Okay, we go into 3, 6, and 9. Okay, and then we go into 9 into 3. 3 goes in the middle, and 6 goes across in position to the ground system. That allocates high center line rotations of ground interference. Ground interference comes in position location line directions. Code signal line centers of crew units, squad units, 1 and 2 position location GFL. We're doing everything through a line center, sending master communication system. All levels of eccentric gods. Set the course line center interference location line conditions, all levels of division. Bring up the ground interference position location alliance. Set the Merkabah channels to higher force line conditions. Space line, space communication, clocking interference location. Starting at signals in interference line position of clocking line centers of 144 miles per second. 30 minutes. Have fun. Calculation modifications to a signal. All right, rotation centers and calculations, all levels of channels. Now, once you guys are traveling, it's important you understand line cross. A line cross in position locations comes into division, right? So coming in this line division locations, you have to learn how to use this through its equation. So we got 3 line centers, we got 6 position locations, we got a triangle interference location, we got 3 weather pattern line center rotations, and we got a symbol interference line condition rotation center in calculations. And we got a box system location to its direction through line center and position to a line cross system, right? So it's all about understanding how to use this through its equation location. It's already done because it's already in position location of its male and its female location system, right? So everything that I do, I split in center of everything that I see, okay? And that's how you modify high centers interference in position location to its direction, right? because everything that becomes a high line center at the levels of its communication is all aligned conditions of symbols. So when you come into symbol line channel, you have to understand communication system. Now, this is where you all line its position locations of negative cycles as a reference and not as a forced communication of a line. You don't want to create dark matter because you're creating a black hole. So if you're creating a black hole, what are you doing through provision locations to your avatar stream? You're disconnecting your physical line. Okay? So it's important you understand what is going on. Okay? So that's how it starts out. All right, so where are we through traction here? All right. All right, you guys are doing beautiful. Let's see here. Grounding chakras, line center interference. Oh, give me a side, go as wide as possible. Great. I tried to change my tube, but divergence, but it didn't work. Well, try again. You can go through your settings. It's pretty easy to change these things. Okay. Setting hand clocking. All right, great. Excellent. Interference. Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff that's going on, right? Just going through it, highline centers and interference locations, soul direction divisions. Drink your waters. Try to understand more of when you come to school, it's all levels of remembrance. That's all. You're just remembering you, right? So try to understand that you're in position locations, understanding the lights and the darks of you, the positive and negative, the male and the female of you, okay? The track line centers, interference locations, all about understanding you. I'm just showing you how powerful it is when you create these things on your own. Okay, so it's like picking channels of a pixel activation stream that doesn't understand its position, or not understanding the highline center interference locations to a psychosis location of its highline interference. So it's all about you understanding you, and the only way you understand you is all through light and dark, because that's all we live in surface. But once you stay in the negative line center, you're no longer in a force line communication system, right? Because now you've just created a position locations of a virus line. Okay, so it's important you understand that, because if it has a feeding source, it's now creating, it's all through its engine, and you're creating a dark circle, dark round black hole, and it spins faster and faster. So it's waiting for you to create a negative cycle again through a thought, and it's just building bigger and 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 bigger, and it expands and expands and expands. You don't want to do that. Okay. Because the thing, what you want to do is basically when you reference the position location negative cycle, it slows down its trajectory locations of power line, generation line interference, and position. It changes the dark lines into light. So the balance of communication, high cis line conditions, this is what it is to the circle lines. So once you come into that position, I'm going to show you. All right. So as you come into high center, we're programming locations. Now you got the positive cycle and rotation, and you got the negative cycle of rotation. See how one goes one way, goes the other? Now, it's your understanding this is the negative cycle. This is the positive position, right? Negative, positive. Now, to understand that the positive always goes forward. It always goes forward. The negative always goes back. See, it's all about coming together, how an atom position location redirects its system. So as it's coming closer and closer, it's trying to stand its position of where it is, the calculation. So as it comes together, once the negative line center doesn't have a feeding source and more levels of positive position locations, you come into an 8-line center of infinity interference in position location of its direction. There it is. Ooh-ah. Affinity 8. Now, that's just the beginning. Now, once you come into the infinity 8-line center, you come into full rotation communications to all line center locations of your crown chakra. Now, if the crown chakra stays in the positive line center locations, the negative line center interconnects the engine interference location of its air. The air becomes a positive channel, positive light, positive realm, positive heart, positive abundance, positive convergence into high line center to a location to its own divergent location of its channel. Now, in rotation line center, it opens all track interference. In that position, it opens all line centers. Okay, so that negative communicates with the positive, right? So the negative goes into center position locations in high center. So what happens is the positive goes into center position locations, just position, and they start coming closer and closer to each other. All right. as they come into closer together, they come into one circle, one rotation, interference line conditions, all position locations of yin and yang. Hoo-ah! Woo! Cool. Isn't it? Wow. You guys blown away yet? All right. Flying into tunnels, bright lights, flush them out. Good. Exactly. Exactly what's going on, people. Tunnels clear, flying around to create the dust. Starting to create the more protection us, more look. Yeah, very good. Excellent. Very good, Chris. Yeah, you guys doing wonderful. Great. Travel's good. Markup is good. Line centers are good. Timelines good. Okay, machine face. Excellent. Knowing exactly what you're going to do. High center interference. Excellent. So this is how it comes into yin and yang. The 6 and 9. Look how powerful that is. Right? All through interline centers of positive and negative locations. Odd and even. Letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols, all in one track interference. You guys got to get in your data streams. Now you start off with your 0 and 1s, but the track interference has to go into 12 line centers, 12 indigent locations, positive interference, atom line center, communications of its Merkaba, channel to its ground interference, in position location heart reactor line center, in position locations power generation light system, in all connections, implantation high center interference locations to its scepter of positive cycles to its round position location of its visionary cortex. Okay, so that's why it's so important is to see in all levels how to use 12 as a reference, not as a clocking. Okay, because it doesn't exist in the fifth dimension. So the avatar sees the stream of perception location of 24. That's the clocking system you stay at. That's the position location when it comes into baby, child, teenager, adult. 24, 48, 72, 144. That's the 4 signal in position locations. 4 streamline centers. You have 4 high line center interference location of seasons, right? Winter, spring, summer, fall. Ooh-ah. Now, 4 and 4 is 8. What is 8 position locations? Infinity cycle of high line center interference of yin and yang position locations of its direction of its life cycle. Okay? So now you know why it's so important to use all levels of a negative cycle to a negative reference. You don't want to create a tunnel because if it creates a tunnel, it creates its own defense. If it creates its own defense, it creates its own perimeters. If it creates its own perimeters, it's creating its own security lines. If it's creating security lines, it's creating its own intelligence. So why is it so important to stay in the positive? So once you get in the positive line center in position locations, the positive and negative turns on the light. See, that's how it works through space and time. These things take time. But once you understand that, then you understand the track line center location, all clocking interference location of yin and yang. All right. I think we're understanding. Okay, let's see here. Protocol is that a father's voice saying the truth shows that you free? That's exactly what truth has already set us free. Has already. Track line center, clocking line interference. All you have to understand is to stay in the 24, 48, 72, 144, and you'll be fine. Use the 12 as a reference for clocking and use all position location negative as a reference. Okay, but don't use it as a force line communication because now you're creating dark round division. All right. So, all right. So I think that pretty much sums it up. 30 minutes all lines track and interference of 57 line centers per second on location. All right, so I'll give you guys 5 more minutes and I'll take you out. All right, so clocking is very positioned to its location. Try to understand that. So using everything as a reference keeps you in a positive cycle. All right. So life is about going forward. All right. Going forward. That's what it is. You're always moving forward. You always find a way to move forward so you can get what you want. Right. Going back does the opposite. All right. So if I'm walking forward and I can walk back, that's great. That's balance. But if I'm walking forward, but I don't understand how to walk back, that's off balance. But if I know how to walk back and I'm still walking forward, there's balance. So you have to understand how to get balance with both, how to go in position locations that are going forward and back, because that's what space-time is. Space is going forward and back. So that is the balance of yin and yang. All right. So the flowing recognition of time has to come in your position locations, but always, always, always use 12 as a reference, and always, always, always use negative as a reference. Because if you don't, you're using a forced recognition of time, changing your position locations of your avatar direction. Okay. So, all right, Jill's on equation line center and position line center, redirect interference, position of taking them out of program setting, computer operation line center, execute high sys line rotations, code signal locations, crew unit, squad unit 1s and 2s, GFL position locations. Let's go into the rebellion line center, sending mass communication center, and high line center interference, ascension God communication system, bring it back into high system. You guys are back now in high center. Where you started in position location to its directions. Congratulations, guys. Fantastic job. So now you get a little bit more understanding what clocking is. Right? Wanted to show you how powerful it is. So it's great to see it through this position and how to use a clocking system. So that's about understanding how to use light and dark, right? But as long as you stay in the 24, you're doing well in position of travel. Okay. So, and you have to just truly understand that too, because this is where it comes in the shadow work. So if you get a 24 signal, that's calculation in inline conditions during a child. That's something that you have to work out, right? That is trauma. That is its drama. Release that, and then you can move to highline center locations equals high position locations of 48. Congratulations, from 24 to 48. So 48 position locations, you're staying at center line positions, you're traveling 48 line center. That's 48,000 line position locations per second traveling through the avatar system. Now, calculations, you're releasing 48 position locations, high rise, high line center, vector communication, high system locations into 72. Congratulations. Now you're in 72 line center. Now rotations, you never have another trauma that you have to release line interference. You circle that in rotation line position. And then you go into high line center interference locations to 144. Ooh-ah, look at that. 144 miles per second line conditions. So do you see how powerful it is? And 144 comes into our line center of 244. There you go. All right. So it's truly understanding what you're doing through clocking, right? But knowing exactly how to use everything as a reference to its position. All right. All right. Great. So you guys did fantastic. I see the perimeter is good. Everybody's landing is good. Yeah, looks really good. Confirmation's in. Nice and smooth rides. So you understand what clocking is. All right. So that's going to help you a lot more, especially with the crews, the squads, and units, and everything with the GFLs, right? Everybody's having a problem. Why is everybody having a problem? Because you make it a problem. You change your thoughts, change the mind. Change the mind, change the image. Changes the image, changes the activation. Change the activation, changes your surrender. Changes the surrender, changes your abundance. Hoo-ah. All right. I will see you guys later. Tomorrow interference, I really want to get more into the mind telepathy, where it's going to get a little bit more confusing line triangles. We're going to set up teleportation units and high center line interference into planet separation locations. More high channel line centers and laser direction interference locations of pyramid activation line streams. All right. See you soon.